Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the Buster Show. On today's episode, we have a friend of mine, Alex McCurry, CEO, founder of Astra Media. My friend, how are you?
What's up, man? Doing well.
We're both in Miami right now, but we're being very safe and responsible people by doing this virtually. How do you like it down here?
It's good. The weather's all right. It's hot. It's cool. It's fine.
You though,
Lots happening.
you are one busy man because since we first met, we have both been in like 6 different states, but you have been in multiple countries as well. How's it been traveling overseas during the pandemic?
It's been good. It's a little weird because people are very like it's interesting to see how different countries and different authorities deal with like the coronavirus stuff. There's certain places that are a lot more strict. There's certain places that are a lot more relaxed. There's certain how the populations interact, So like people because I was in Spain for a while, people in Spain, for instance, are really it's not only the people in power that are making decisions that are like acting with caution, like the people are very scared, right? Whereas like in the US you see a lot of people who are like, oh, like this is whatever, we're tired of the lockdown. But then the people in charge, right, the government is like, okay, like you need to practice like social distancing, all these things. And then it's over there, it's like people are really scared. They're really worried. Like, I would say 90% of the population, 90 to 95% of the population is like truly bothered by this, like truly like frightened.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes sense why people don't care here, and it's the worst here.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your beginnings. We're both 20, right?
Yeah.
I'm asking you my own age.
Yes.
Uh,
Buster claims he's 20.
The beard. We were talking about this the other night. The beard gives me a few years. And if you're ever trying to get a few years, that's all you got to do.
I don't have those.
You don't have the capabilities.
Working on it.
You'll. I believe in you.
One of these days.
I want to talk about you as a younger entrepreneur. How did you first get started in this space? We all have our different stories. For a lot of people, it was social media. What was it for you? How did you try to get your own foot in the door?
Yeah, so I was always doing lots of like small, like little things to try to make money. Like just make money online. Like I was, 15, 16, like any kid who's like really motivated to make money. I was just figuring stuff out. So I would do all sorts of weird stuff. I remember for a while I was like installing in like 2015 when like Bitcoin was really hot, 2016, I was installing like Bitcoin mining software on people's computers and like taking a royalty of like what the software mined. And I was doing a lot of like different weird things. But the way I started with what I do now was basically on social, building pages. And the reason I got into building pages was basically I learned about like e-commerce, right? And people were selling stuff online, but I didn't have any money. So I was like, okay, how am I going to sell products without having to rely on ads converting, right? Because I don't have like capital to invest into ads. And I also don't know how to run ads, right? I didn't have like that runway to figure out how to do it. So my solution was like build these organic followings on social and figure out how to build like organic traction essentially, and then leverage that to drive traffic to like a point of sale of some sort. So I was building like niche specific pages, right? In different spaces, trying to drive traffic to like different products. It worked okay. I essentially like, I was young and didn't really have a ton of resources. So I decided like, I'm not going to build the next like big, like product, like consumer product brand. So I turned that into like a digital agency where I was just trying to like essentially like internally manage pages for companies and stuff, and did okay, like made a little bit of money, but like didn't do super well. And then eventually like pivoted that into essentially like closed that shop down. And it's kind of like, there's a weird timing around it. So basically I had that company I ran into those issues. I ran into some issues with scaling because managing pages internally is something that you can't really scale past a certain point, because then you have to like teach someone how to do it. Right.
Right.
So I was running into these scalability issues. Then I also like co-founded this app at the same time in high school. And I really liked the tech scene and like startups and like that sort of world. So I basically decided to pivot, and I was trying to build out resources that would make me like an asset to a tech startup without being a VC or an engineer. So I was like, okay, how do I do that? Well, it's growth, right? So I had like access to pages, but I was like, okay, I need more. So I started building relationships like PR and like different sorts of, ways that I could like help with like user acquisition or like data or like lead generation, stuff like that, where I could try to be like sort of like a growth hacking type like person that could help provide that value to a company like that. And then it turned into just me building a lot of like useful like resources and like a book of services that I could provide. And I found a lot of people that weren't tech oriented that wanted those services, and then that turned into just getting more and more clients and growing, and then it turned into a company.
And now one of your interests is, like you alluded to there, is actually helping companies in exchange for pieces of their company, and providing that sort of marketing value in exchange for that. Is that something that you think is viable long term, or you think a lot of companies are going to pick up on things like that, or why other people don't do it?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think there's a couple of reasons. So the sort of like, for people that don't know, I have like a VC, essentially like investment platform and startup accelerator through my company, which basically what I do is like invest in small companies and startups. And then I use all of our media and marketing and advertising resources that we have in house to fast track growth for portfolio companies we invest in. So I think the reason it's really unique is there's not a lot of people. There's two different worlds here, right? Because you're like mixing like media and marketing and like this sort of like one world with like finance and like venture and investing, which is another world. And
Right.
I think those things don't organically mesh. You know what I mean? Like a lot of startups, like they raise capital and then they go and then they contract a marketing agency or they hire a CMO to help them like put strategy together, And a lot of times people who are like media and marketing oriented don't have like that same background either, because it's a completely different world. So the reason I sort of got into it was actually because my CFO is like an institutional like investor guy, like manages like over $150 million in assets. I think I told you about him. It's Adam, but like really successful guy on the finance side, and being sort of exposed to like him talking about real estate deals and finance and like these different types of like, investment structures and how funds work and like these different things sort of gave me the idea like, okay, I can build out maybe a model that leverages our resources to build more durability into our company by getting indexes on really cool, like high growth potential projects, right? That might not necessarily have the capital to invest into working with us on a client level anyway. So maybe we can still extract some value out of like a relationship like that.
And do you now think this is different from angel investing? Because look at people who angel invest, and this is something that kind of blows my mind right now. But a lot of like big social media stars have become angel investors, which makes very little sense because the probability of these companies succeeding is very, very slim. But do you think this kind of takes angel investing and puts it in a whole nother context, because you're actually able to be hands-on with it as opposed to throwing money at it and hoping that it succeeds with no reference points?
Yeah, I think like traditional angel investing by its very nature is like very passive, right? Because the idea with like venture specifically is like you invest in 10, 20 projects, and then hopefully like one or two of those projects make up for the losses of the remaining of the rest, right? Especially if you're looking at like really high growth like tech stuff. I think with us, we focus on companies that are more like profit oriented, that also have like some sort of like vertical integration to something we're already doing. So we feel really confident in our ability to like help with the growth. So we don't really like get into bed with something that we don't feel like we can bring a lot of value to, because we're a small shop. I'm not playing with other people's money, right? It's all like internal. It's all my money that I'm investing to these projects. So to hedge against risk, I need to find stuff that I know that I can bring enough value to at least recoup what I'm the risk capital that I'm outlaying,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, why do you think the reason that, nobody else is doing this is because they don't have the time for it and they don't have the media properties, to do it? Like, why don't venture funds create their own individual outlets like these?
I think I think it's probably a little bit of a mix. I think one, a lot of them wouldn't know how to do it,
Right.
and then on top of it, it's
That youthful energy.
and then another thing is it's a bandwidth thing, right? So it's like you're sacrificing bandwidth in exchange for de-risking like the investment, right? A lot of venture funds are their thing is like they're just trying to get into bed with as many projects as possible that they like. They're investing in 100 companies plus sometimes the big funds, right? Maybe more. So they don't have like I don't think they have the bandwidth to be strategic or operational on all of those things.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. Um, and it makes sense for these companies to give up, equity or rev share or whatever it is, because they need to be spending those same dollars, that they would have got from an investment for the same amount into the marketing.
Right. So like that's really how we structure. That's how we deal structure a lot of these things. Is a lot of these companies are going to be spending these dollars anyway on marketing and media and stuff. So we basically say, okay, well, we can come in, we'll provide like maybe a cash contribution of X and then like a media capital contribution of Y, which is basically like a credit bank to draw upon services from like our company, which has like a suite of services that it provides on the media and marketing side. And then on top of it, you have access to our full book of services beyond like our initial contribution at cost, which a lot of times can reduce the like what they're spending by a really dramatic amount, right? Maybe they're getting their influencer marketing spend down by 30 or 50%, right? Or maybe they're getting their PR budget down by 60%, right? Or 80%. So it's got layers to it, and obviously each deal is unique, but that's like the thesis. A lot of thesis is around those are dollars they're already going to be spending. We're trying to give them more value than they would be getting if they would go with like a traditional sort of structure.
But how do you now manage your bandwidth between all of them? Because these are forever. You have equity in them forever.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a forever project that just compounds over itself. So do you need to build a team to be able to sustain that, or how do you look at that affecting your bandwidth?
Yeah. So it depends, because some stuff requires less bandwidth, and it's also the nature of each deal. So some stuff maybe is more bandwidth, some is less, some is front loaded, some is ongoing but less in scope. So it really depends. But for me, I'm really busy, and I have a lot of balls in the air. But I have a lot of good people also that I'm working with and stuff, and I have people I can rely on to help get things done. And we have a lot of the stuff is being able to plug in a lot of the resources we already have, and we have that infrastructure built out for the client facing part of our business. So integrating them in sometimes doesn't require that much, right? If they need a lot of bandwidth, maybe it's just in the form of like, a lot of times is in the form of like strategy, or like stuff that, I think can help like take to the next level, or maybe some sort of interesting partnership that we can create with some other entity or some other person that can help, move things along.
100%. And to a point, I think I think people are actually, like, you and I are better off having more balls in the air than we can, like, so we can barely juggle them, as opposed to not having enough.
Yeah.
You always hear people say that you're best off when you're focused on like 10 different projects, 10 different things, because it makes you the most creative possible, because you're able to take things from one to another, and one gives
I
you
think so.
something else.
I think so too. And a lot of the nature of a lot of like the stuff that we work on is it already like it integrates into something we're already doing, which is what we try to go for a lot of times, because then we know that it can plug in, we can bring that value. And then also, to your point, it's when you're working on one thing, a lot of times you get to the point where like you can't do anything else for a little bit till you get some input back. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to go and you do your deliverables and you cross off your checklist, and then it's like you need to wait for X person to get back to you on this, or like you've done all your content, right? So then you know for that period of time you're good until the next thing. So having multiple things, I feel like focusing on one thing, unless it's a really, really, really complex thing, is almost but then at that point it's not even focusing on one thing, right? So it's like I think it limits your ability to get a lot of stuff done.
Right. Well, I think by nature of focusing on a lot of things, it means you do a lot of things. And when you do a lot of things, you have a lot of things. And the best investors, the best people who have businesses that we know are the ones who can plug and plop into different things that they own. Like, you know, Richard Branson or whomever.
Right.
I can think of a bit LeBron James. You know, he has 20 different businesses that he can take, you know, something. And essentially it's sort of like what you're doing. You know, he has a lot of different properties. He has his alcohol, he has agency, he has his content studio, he has his basketball team, he has his social media platforms, he has his family social media platforms, he has a family page for the channel. He has he has all of his content deals with luggage companies and a billion different things, right? But he can plug and plop. You know, if somebody comes around, you know, with a skincare product, he can plug and plop that into the right places and, you know, do the right things with that because of his already existing projects and companies. It just expedites the process. There are a lot of similarities in my head, I think, even if it's not active and he's not getting anything for having them. It's just a benefit.
Yeah. And I think too, if you're in a position where you're meeting tons of people in tons of different industries, then it's really great because you see the connections and you see the plug and plays. If you're really, really focused on one niche, then maybe it's not as good for you because you're really focused on that one thing. But if you're getting to bed with like a lot of different projects that span across a lot of different industries, then when you meet people who have stuff going on and skincare, right, you can be like, oh, like I know this person has this thing going on and we can plug it into here. And because you're actively you have that, even if it's a passive interest, you have that you have that first in mind, like I can still bring some value to this thing, even though it doesn't have anything to do with basketball or it doesn't have anything to do with sports management or pizza, right? Or alcohol or whatever.
Bro, that's the game right there. Being able to have something that is of value for everybody on the planet.
Yeah. Cause then there's just endless opportunity, right? If you have, because that's the thing that's actually the reason that I pivoted into what I'm doing now is like I was seeing the stuff I was doing on the agency side and we were doing really well from like a cash flow perspective and it was good, but I was like okay, well I'm meeting so many people I can't bring value to because our products are like pretty high ticket and a lot of people don't have like if you don't have like a company that needs what we need, right? It's like cool, we could have a relationship, but I can't really bring a lot of value to them beyond like maybe just helping them with some like advice or something on something that I might know something about. So the idea behind what I was doing is like I wanted to be able to create more opportunity out of all the people I was meeting as well, because I wanted to be able to plug into more things and diversify.
100%. That's one of the major reasons I started this podcast, so that there's not a single archaeologist or marine biologist that I don't have some sort of value to provide. Just, you know, whoever it is in any walk of life, that if they're interesting, I got something for them.
Yeah, that's super cool.
But I think there are 25,000 different versions of that, having, you know, marketing company, or if you do public speaking, like, you know, there are just a million different things. So where do you see yourself long term? I know we've spoken about your lock screen. So we know that you want a nice jet one day. But what are your real long term goals and visions, to the point that you know now, because obviously these things change every day?
Yeah, it's changing a lot, but I would say like to build out to just double down on what we're doing within the company, keep executing, keep growing those things, build out the like the venture platform, and build a really like good group of case studies, because it's still young. Been doing it like 8-9 months really. So build that out, really like prove that that's something that I can do, and do well, and build some additional durability for the company and grow the company. And I don't know, I'm just focused on executing right now.
It's good.
One thing at a time.
It's good. So now how do you when you need to take breathers, how do you do it? Are you a meditator? Do you work out? What do you do to step away from the game? Because everybody has, it's necessary, and everybody has their own ways. So I'm curious what yours are.
Definitely like exercise or sports. Just because for me, like I grew up like playing sports. I played tennis at a pretty high level. So I used to train like 6-7 hours a day, and like that's where I get a lot of clarity from from exercise and from playing sports and stuff. So
tennis is great, man. It's a fantastic cardio sport.
It's great. It's real. It's great. You can't really make any money unless you're really, really, really good. But
unless you're Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, or Djokovic.
And then you make hundreds of millions of dollars. It goes from like zero to like making $100 million.
I think Federer is close to being a billionaire.
Yeah, I think he's worth like 800 million, something like that.
Not too shabby.
He's doing all right.
He's doing all right.
He probably has a plane or two.
That's what you do? No, he's a great guy though. Most of the guys in tennis, most of the top professional athletes, I feel like generally speaking, you don't meet that many really, really, really successful assholes. Like, it's always the people that are like kind of successful, and the people who aren't, but like have an ego that are, because they haven't seen the full picture of, and most people in general aren't. They're great, amazing people. And most people that I've come across, like yourself, are just good people regardless of what level, of success they've had or are going to have or think they have or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I think go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think at the highest levels, like people who are really successful are usually really good people, because they're just like, they don't have anything to prove to anyone. So they sort of lose the ego, and then they're also just like, they've done the thing, so they're happy with where they're at, and they're just trying to like bring more value into the world to the people that they care about and the projects they care about.
So interesting. I like that a lot. Yeah. Not needing to prove anything to anybody. And that's sort of a point that, anybody who has success, we'll all have that at different levels, but then the peak is having that across the board for everything. Although you'll always get into new ventures and want to prove yourself by nature, but it's very true. If Jeff Bezos gets into a new endeavor, he doesn't really need to prove himself.
No, Jeff Bezos definitely has done enough proving.
Can think, but then again, I would make an argument that like Elon is still proving himself in the sense of like space transportation of humans, and I think he thinks that.
Well, I think it's like they still have crazy ambition, because that's the reason they are where they are, right? But they don't have like the ego of like, I want people to think I'm better than them, because people know what I've done, so I don't need to prove that to anyone.
Exactly. I think that's a great way of putting it. You've spent a lot of time with some billionaires and whatnot. What are the biggest things you pick up from those dudes?
They really value they really value freedom a lot. I've noticed, like the thing I've seen across the board is like how much people like that really value freedom, and like why they've like gotten to the level they have is just because they're like very focused on building like a reality where they can do whatever they want, you know.
What do you mean
But
by freedom?
like, I think freedom is different for different people, but it's just fundamentally it's being able to do what you want with your time, with your life, you know. I think that's one like major thing that I've seen across the board from those guys. I would say like from a personality perspective, everyone's really different, right? So it's hard to like pin down, you know, how I think there is like there's definitely a lot of ego behind a lot of like frontward facing humility. It's like, you know, people like that have done really well know that they're really good at what they do, or know that they're, you know their shit, you know. So that's,
100%.
you know, there's that like confidence for
Yeah.
sure.
So something super interesting though is, you know, you wonder, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but you know, you want to be the most successful guy who doesn't have to do anything, right? Who doesn't have to lead a company, who doesn't have to, you know, be in charge of 1,000 people and making sure that they're all good, who doesn't have to, you know, report to anybody, you know, and all those things, but, you know, is on the other side of it. Kind of sounds like somebody who just made a great exit and gets to start from the beginning. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you ever want to be in a position where you know, at 40, 50, 60 still have to like have a team of employees or people that you're responsible for, or do you think that takes away from the freedom, or no?
I think there's, I think as long as you have, I think you can have freedom, but also have accountability, you know? So I think there is a balance though, right? Because when you have investors or shareholders that own a meaningful piece of something, right? There's certain things you can't do, right? Um, but I think there's it's definitely a balance. You know, some people really want to be a part of like building something, regardless of what level they get to. You know, look at like Elon, like you said, or Jeff Bezos, right? Like those guys have enough money to buy multiple countries and live for, you know, 1,000 lifetimes. So like the the question of like they have unlimited freedom in that sense. They can do whatever they want within human limits, you know, but they're choosing to, you know, they're on a mission of some sort.
No, 100%. Would you ever want to own a publicly traded company, or does that sound like a mess?
I think I think IPOs provide a lot of liquidity. So if that was something I cared a lot about, maybe. But I would say from an operational perspective, it would be less fun because you have all these like compliance things and things you have to file, and like there's
Boards.
a lot more accountability, right? Which limits the freedom, you know?
Yep. You got to have, you know, full on boards, and, you know, your family starts investing in your stock, they lose money, and then you're like, ah, oh, damn, you know? Yeah. I think about like all of that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, that would be brutal. But hey, if it does well, I mean, that's how the richest people in the world become the richest people in the world. It doesn't happen through an exit
Yeah.
ever,
And people get pretty rich off exits, but
but
they
not
don't.
100 billion rich.
Yeah. Well, and that's like the highest level of accountability, right? It's like the public market. You have like literally everyday people investing in your vision and your company and your thing. Like that's crazy. You have people's
Pretty
pension fund, you have their pension funds, their retirement accounts locked up in your company, right? Like that's like the level of accountability there is like the implications are insane, right? It's like one wrong move and like you lose tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in value, right? And like those are real dollars.
If you're Apple or Amazon, could be trillions.
It's crazy.
But yeah,
So
that's
it's a different level.
scary though. But yeah, what's the biggest exit that's ever happened in the history of the world? Slack
Biggest,
just sold for 27.
yeah, it's huge. I don't know. Probably. I don't know.
I'd be
No
curious
idea.
to find that out.
Well, there are a
Uh,
lot of big acquisitions that happen, right? It's like Berkshire Hathaway, like Warren Buffett acquires pieces of things, right, public and private, that are really big amounts. Like if it's not worth in the tens of billions, it's almost not worth his time. You
Is
know?
he buying that through stock though, or is he actually buying pieces of the company?
Well, it's stock shares are pieces of the company.
Right, right.
So if he buys 10% of Coca-Cola, he owns 10% of Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah. He's just doing it in such large quantities that that is a thing as opposed to
Right.
somebody else where it's not even relevant.
Well, they have like 200 billion in cash. So if you think of that as like him trying to produce returns, right, as like a function of the size of the portfolio, 1% is $2 billion. So if he wants to have like solid return or more, sorry, it's $4 billion. Wait, no, sorry, $2 billion. Yeah.
Why are Berkshire shares so expensive? It's like 220K a share just because they limited quantity and a lot of success since the beginning, or what's the?
I think they have two types of shares. So they have one that's like more, they have one that's cheaper. That I don't know exactly how their shares work. You can Google it. It's like they have two different shares. They have one that's like for the public, for like cheap, like cheaper shares, and then they have like these like expensive shares. They're like you said, they're like $300,000 a share. I think they just haven't done a stock split with that, right? Because like usually the reason that share prices go down is just because they just double it from 10 million shares to 20 million shares, and the price goes from $10 to $5 a share.
Right, like Tesla and Apple just did.
Exactly.
That was crazy. It went pretty wild. Now, how do you feel about all this Bitcoin madness?
It's, I don't know.
Would you ever take, if somebody was like, I don't have any cash to pay you, but I can pay you in Bitcoin? Are you taking that?
Yeah, I've taken large amounts of Bitcoin stuff,
Really?
actually. Yeah, because it's liquid, right? So it's like you get the Bitcoin, you sell it, and it's cash. I actually like crazy. I had $110,000 in Bitcoin literally like 6 weeks ago when Bitcoin was at $10,000, and I took it out. I'm not kidding. Like a week or two before the spike, so I would have made like 100 grand on that Bitcoin.
Why'd you take it out?
Well, I took it out because someone paid me for something, and I was like, this isn't stable. This is fluff. It could go the other way, right? So I was just
Jesus Christ, man. Yeah. I mean, it's so volatile. It's just, I have a tricky time I have like a little bit just to like keep track of how it goes, but nothing like that. Yeah, that's
I don't trust it. Like I'm mainly like all in cash, because for me, my thing is I feel like I can get a lot better returns like in private investments and private companies through like the investment platform that I've built. So for me, it's like
all my money in these bad boys. For those that are listening to the audio, I just held up sports cards. But yeah, those alternative investments. What are you looking at these days? Do you invest in any like collectibles or physical objects or art or anything like that? Or are you mostly on the company side?
yeah, mostly like I might get a watch soon. Like watches retain a lot of value. Like if you buy the right watch, like you're not going to lose money on it. You might make money. I'm looking at this rose gold Daytona right now. That's like pretty cool. Like
Nice.
got a rubber strap because I got these dainty little wrists. I gotta find something that looks at least decent.
I've always been an Apple Watch guy just because of how it tracks like your fitness and everything you're doing. You get points for just walking. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, a nice watch has nowhere near the functionality. It's it's more just like
you can't accept a call on your
Rolex.
Baguette. You can't accept a phone call on there. Hey, Patek Philippe. You already know the vibes. No, I like being able to text somebody on my watch. I don't know. Maybe I'm living a little bit too futuristic here. I'm too lazy to pull out the phone out of my pocket and I'll just text on my watch.
Yeah, for me, like the phone is easy, so I don't know like how much more utility I would get out of it, you know?
Fair. Yeah. No, I hear and respect that. What you think watches hold up over time though? I thought watches were like
Certain
shoes
watches,
though.
certain watches. So there's certain watches that are like made in limited production that historically have gone up over time and that just continue to go up in value. So yeah, so there are certain watches. Most watches lose value, right?
Because
Obviously.
I got beef with a couple investments. I got beef with people who invest in sneakers and cars, because those two, the second you drive them off the lot, the second you wear them,
Yeah, those aren't the move. There's certain ways that you can make money off cars. Like I used to own part of an exotic car rental company in Miami. And
that's so risky if anybody's driving
so,
them.
well, yeah, that's the issue, right? It's like that's why I'm like I got out really is because the
Same
risk
thing with
profile of
shoes,
that.
right? But this is my problem. I don't want to buy something that's meant to be used a certain way, but I can't use it that way.
Yeah,
Sports
I
cards are the best because this is its final form. I can hold this up. This is why I bought it. So I can hold it up like this and nothing is going to change. It's in a case. This is the sneaker, but it was never meant to be worn. It was just meant to be looked at. And that's why it's visually appealing. And I get the best dopamine rush every time I hold it.
I was watching this video of this guy, like literally yesterday, who was making a joke about Kanye West was walking into a construction zone and he took his white Yeezys off because he didn't want to get them dirty. And he's like, we've fully evolved because these shoes are supposed to protect your feet from the rough terrain below. And he's walking into a construction zone. He's taking his shoes off so they don't get dirty. Like it's the reverse of the utility.
God damn it, Kanye. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'm a big fan of Ye though. You know,
He's a genius in his own way.
he's one of those people, like I said, like we were talking about earlier, that has all those different businesses, right? He's got, his apparel, he's got his music, he's got, his clothing, he's got, all these different things, the shoes and the relationships with the different companies, Gap, Adidas, Nike. So it's interesting, but he's a great pick and plopper, minus some of the extraterrestrial stuff.
He's maximized the value of his brand for sure, right? He's pivoted in such an amazing way away from music and been able to get into so many great things outside of that. Pretty impressive. And he married into the first family of America, right? So
and he's honestly going to become the president one day. I don't know if it's 4 years or 8 years or 12 years, but I think he'll do it one day.
My buddy always says that he has the backing of the first family. Don't underestimate him.
Bro, it's true.
Yeah, they have enough followers to move the needle.
They have more followers combined than people in the United States.
Yeah, and to mention, like, you only need like 70, 80 million votes to win. Now 80 million, but it used to be like you need 65 million votes to win, and then a lot of extra votes this election, probably because of coronavirus and early voting and stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Maybe, yeah, really, really interesting how things are going to shape out over the next 10, 15, 20 years. You see Elon yesterday, he said he was trying to put people on Mars by 2026.
You told me that. I didn't see it, but
how insane would that be? 6 years from now, pretty much 5 years from now, people being on Mars.
He's pretty aggressive with his timelines with everything, though. You see, he'll be like, yeah, we got this car coming out. Like, it's coming out soon, a couple months, and then it's like a year and a half later, he's like, guys, car's coming out. I swear.
Yeah, so maybe that means 2036, not 2026. Who knows?
Yeah, but he's very ambitious, which is what you need to get something like that done. He's a genius, that guy.
Yeah, no, 100%. So what companies are you most interested in? Are you most focused on like product companies and stuff like that? Or are you more interested on like those, super shots of tech and stuff?
As far as like personally or just in general?
In terms of Astra, in terms of, where you're
Yeah.
deploying your focus.
Well, I think there's a lot more risk affiliated with the tech stuff. That's like, these companies that are like burning a lot of cash to try to like get to some, hit some, escape velocity growth where they can finally like make an exit or go public and like get
Right.
liquidity. It's like super high risk because most of those companies don't get there. So for me, I like to get involved with stuff I know. So like media, to some extent technology. Like I have a company I'm working on right now. It's like it does like data scraping. So it scrapes data, can scrape a lot of data, and also can do a lot of different forms of like targeted outreach and lead generation and user acquisition through.
Kind of data.
So like, for instance, we could scrape like data from Instagram accounts. So you could go and say, oh, maybe LeBron is dropping a new line of sneakers, right? And and Nike wants to get a bunch of people to the site. We have a tool where you could pull all of the emails, phone numbers, contact information from all of LeBron's followers or all the people who liked his last post, right? And then you use that for marketing to that audience. So building out a couple tools like that.
Being able to pull people's emails?
Yeah, because their emails are attached most of the time to their Instagram accounts. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of times you can just go in and find someone's email from their Instagram account. So that's public information. So you can legally extract the data.
Where would you find it though on somebody's account?
So like a lot of times there's like the contact bubble or something. You click that and it'll take you to an email. So like that'll be there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of times how it's linked. I think there's a couple other ways that it's accessible basically.
Dope. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Email lists are underrated in my opinion because people aren't doing them as much anymore. Well, the open rates are so small. Text is great, but text is becoming oversaturated now. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I have a buddy who works at Community.
Yeah.
They're doing some crazy stuff over there.
Oh, they're awesome. I've had my Community number for like a year and a half now. I was one of the.
How do you like it?
I love it. I think it's amazing that the open rate is 99.9%. Everybody opens all their texts as opposed to email, which is like 50% if you're lucky.
It's less. It's like 5%, 10% open rate.
Right. So that's amazing, but people do get annoyed, if you send more than one text a week or whatever. So people, unless it's, very specific. So there are a lot of ways that they're going to continue improving, but I'm a big fan of the open rate. Yes. And I love Community. They're awesome.
How do you use it? Do you use it to like tell people about podcasts or to sell products, or how do you see it? What do you think is like the best utility for it? Like what's the best example of someone, using Community and getting a lot of value out of it?
I can get a lot of people to something very quickly. So, hey guys, I'm giving away a pair of sneakers. All you got to do is go follow the podcast Instagram page. 5,000 people in 30 seconds.
Really?
Yeah. So like stuff like that, it's great for. But oftentimes I'll just like send out positive messages, and people say it helps them because there's nothing better than getting like a nice text from somebody. Even if it's from my community, it's like, here, let me see if I can find a good one, a good example to give here. Let's go to sent. I sent this on election day, right? I said, big love. Also, by the way, you're going to crush the next 4 years regardless of who wins. It's a nice text. Yeah. Especially when everything was so crazy. I was like, yo, how are you doing? Keep pushing no matter what. I said, action time. Do something nice right now for somebody that you love. Text me back with what you did and to who. And I got like, 10,000 texts of people who did really nice things, and all that took was like 15
Wow.
seconds from me. So
How many people do you have in your community?
I can't say, but I can tell you after.
Okay.
But um, but yeah, it's really a lot of fun. Yeah, I think it's just the beginning. But imagine for a person like, Obama, who just joined Community, he's probably got a couple million numbers, maybe.
Crazy.
Definitely hundreds of thousands. So
He's gonna sell a lot of books.
it's number one book all time. It's going to be the number one book ever in the history of the world.
Well, Harry Potter, the Bible. There's a few competitors.
They got to watch out. He's selling this book. Selling this book, man. He did what, like 1 million copies in the first day? Woo! God damn. Crazy. All right. I think, is the last question I want to ask, and this will be a good way to close it off. What's your best advice for young entrepreneurs, aka, yourself, at a younger age?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is really find something where you can build a skill, and where you can be better than most people at it, and really refine that, and then figure out how to monetize it. If your goal is that, figure out some sort of, like, there's so many opportunities on social and like online to build out some knowledge and like ability to deliver some sort of service to people who won't understand it to the extent that you do if you really study it the right way and you really learn. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think just, working hard to build a skill set is probably the number one thing. And then just meeting as many people as possible and trying to make mistakes and learn and find people that have done what you want to do and try to learn from them and convince them that you're worth, investing some time and energy into.
Putting the time in that other people aren't willing to.
There it is.
Alex, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast. Where can people find you best if they want to follow you on social?
Yeah, just at Alex McCurry O on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn too, but Instagram is mainly the spot.
It's the spot. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks again, Alex.
All right, man. Take care.
Boom.